Done on WBSC, the Whiskey Network is pleased to bring Nate Woodruff of Whiskey with a View to you guys for a little chat and some whiskey. Cheers, Nate.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you. So you're followed by a shit ton of people, man. It's pretty impressive. So a lot of people want to know a lot of things about you. Of course, you've been in a lot of different newspapers, a lot of articles, a lot of different interviews. So you've been with Whiskey, Bourbon, and Scotch Enthusiasts for about 5 years now. You were in before 1,000 members. So I've enjoyed following you over the years, looking at your photography, all that stuff. I mean, my God, you do take some gorgeous pictures.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So truly glad that you're here, and let's get started. What you're doing is truly sounds like a dream job. You're kind of become a social media influencer. You become a paid influencer. What should people know about kind of choosing that path in life?
Well, first off, I absolutely abhor the term influencer. I think it's got a lot of negative baggage attached to it. You know, people think like, oh, it's just someone that, you know, posts products for money and stuff like that. What I sell brands is my photography. So that's what it's always been about, is I want them to buy my art, my work. So I make sure to tell people, look, I mean, I've done influencer campaigns before, like it's for like a big brand that's going to pay me a lot. Like I did shoots for like Budweiser or Doers or something like that. So I don't mind doing paid gigs like that, but I'm still going to do my absolute best to make sure that photography is fantastic. So the brands that I'm working with now, I have several different sponsors, all whiskey related. They're paying me each month for photographs, but of course, you know, they also get featured on their page. So there is a marketing standpoint to that as well. Yeah, I mean, for this particular trip, I just had to bring on a bunch of different brands. I have to shoot constantly. I don't consider that work. I joke around and say that I only work about 1 hour out of the month, which is when I type up my invoices and send the photos to the various brands that are sponsoring me. Because other than that, I mean, as anyone that's followed me for years knows, this is my passion, and I absolutely love doing it.
So to use the term again, social media influencer, you've reached a lot of people, just for you. You've reached a lot of people, and you could really change things, do good things, create occasions of togetherness, all this stuff. What's something that you've kind of done for the good of the community and everybody?
I mean, I know for me personally, when I started off on Instagram, there were only like 4 other dudes that were posting about whiskey. And so for me, it was never about exposure. It was actually kind of just something that was great for me to keep a journal of what I was drinking, because I would just take a picture of the bottle I was trying, write up my notes on it, write up what I found interesting about the history, about the brand or the bottle. And for me, it was just as a visual person, it was nice for me to scroll through and just see a picture and review and remember what I had tried. And then, you know, as everyone knows, it really blew up. And now you've got thousands and thousands of men and women just, you know, posting. And the big change for me came when I threw a bottle of whiskey into my backpack on a whim. I was going on a little hike down by a river by my old house. And I was just like, oh, I'm just going to combine my 2 passions, which are the outdoors and hiking and whiskey. So I just put the bottle on a rock in the middle of the stream. It was a bottle of Glenfiddich 19-year Age of Discovery bourbon. I remember it was the first picture I ever took that was like that. And I took a picture of it, wrote up my review, and I noticed that it got a shit ton more traction. You know, more likes, more responses, more this is cool. I was like, oh, cool, I'm onto something. So I'm just going to do this for all my reviews. So every single, several times a week, I go hiking, and I would just, you know, throw a bottle or 2 in my backpack and take pictures, and then go home, paste them, write up my review with that picture. And then it just exploded. It just blew up. I had no idea what I had stumbled upon, but it just became this viral thing. It was getting featured on, you know, BuzzFeed and stuff. I was gaining thousands of followers a week. And then I started witnessing a lot of people emulate that style of photography, which I've never been someone to say that anyone's my competition. That's just, for me, I love seeing other people's work, and I was getting tagged in, at first a couple of posts every week, and then dozens, and then hundreds of just people taking pictures of whiskey around the world in scenic locations. It was so cool to witness. And still to this day is one of my favorite things, is logging in at the end of the week and looking at all the work that people have submitted and tagged me in. Hi, Sky. Hello. Yes, thank you.
Photo bomb.
she does that. She does that. But yeah, no, it was just a crazy spiral. I mean, I remember the first whiskey brand page to follow me was actually Buffalo Trace, and they reposted one of my pictures, and I thought that was, the coolest thing in the world. And of course, since then I've done a lot of work with them. But I mean, for me, it was just kind of like a passion project that I never knew would develop into something that became a full-time career, and kind of helped get my foot in the door in the whiskey industry. As many of you know, I worked with brands for over 7 years as a brand ambassador. But I mean, it's just something that was, there's a lot of passion involved in me learning about photography and how to photograph better. But at the end of the day, like, I never wanted to make that my, modus operandi was just work. I always wanted to be a passion project. And that's something that I've tried to keep up for the years that I've been doing it.
So that sort of follows into the next question, and you pretty much answered it. So you worked in the hospitality industry, you worked as a brand ambassador. Was there always something in the back of your mind that told you that you wanted to have this minimalist lifestyle?
I mean, I've always loved the outdoors and hiking, and I've loved the concept of a road trip around America ever since I was a small child. I've always been very inquisitive and, love to explore and discover new things. So I wouldn't say the concept was really there. It just kind of developed over the years. But I mean, I started in the bar restaurant industry when I was 17 years old, and bartended and worked every kind of position, from busboy to hosting to doing the dishes in the back, to managing and running cocktail programs, whiskey programs. And I did that all the way up until I was 27 years old. And for me, to work my way up through that was a great experience, because the subsequent years of working as a brand ambassador, I had a really firm grip on that industry and knew how it operated, how it worked. I had brand ambassadors approach me. So I didn't really know that I wanted to be a brand ambassador until I started going to whiskey events. So I was, I think 23 years old, and going to these Whiskey Guild meetings and whiskey, I think Whiskey Live was starting up then, or yeah, I think it was Whiskey Live and Whiskey Fest. And for me, I thought that was the coolest position ever. Like, you get to stand behind a booth and drink whiskey and talk to people and educate them. So I knew very, very early on in my whiskey career and whiskey hobby enthusiast that was something that I really, really wanted to do. So I made it a goal for myself, as like, I want to be a brand ambassador. And then I worked with William Grant for 3 years. And I said, okay, I want to be a national brand ambassador. And that was when I was 27 years old. That's when Michter's tapped me to become their national brand ambassador. So I was quite, to the best of my knowledge, still probably the youngest national brand ambassador that I'm aware of in the whiskey industry. But that's going to change, because people are getting into it. I mean, I got guys that are getting into bourbon that are 21 years old, which is, really funny to me, because I always thought I was the young guy. I mean, that was one of the reasons I grew out my beard, is because I'd be going to events that I was running and getting carded. They're like, I look like a 14-year-old if I don't have hair on my face. So they're like, who's this child that's coming in with these bottles of booze? So are you the help? We don't know. But yeah, no, I never really knew the way that it would snowball and turn into what it is today. But it's definitely, now that I look back on it, it makes sense, just given my combination of passions.
All right. So you got your backpack loaded, got your camera around your neck, got a bottle of whiskey in the sack, you got your hiking boots on, and you shoot off into the hills. When you get up there, are you going up there kind of like, I hope I get the perfect shot? Or are you still enjoying nature the way nature?
No. For me, there have been hikes where I've hiked with full gear, bottles, everything, and not taken a single picture. For me, and I warn anyone that hikes with me, I'm like, if I just stop dead in my tracks, I'm sorry if you run into me, because it means I just saw something. So I'm always try to, and to the best of my knowledge, I've never really not appreciated hikes.
Right.
Because the picture taking itself, I mean, for most hikes, I'm using one, maybe two pictures from the entire thing. And I'm only shooting at certain destinations because a lot of the hikes I'm doing is mostly, through the woods. You don't have these glorious vistas and views the entire trail. A lot of it, you're scrambling or going through woods or, what have you. But there are hikes that I've revisited where I know where I want to shoot. There I might have missed something before. But whenever I set out on a new hike, I always go with like a totally open mind. And, I know there have been plenty of times where I've not gotten any content, but, I still enjoyed my walk through the woods.
So how long do you kind of spend taking your shots? Or are you, I know you're not a one and done kind of guy, I'm sure. But I hope you ain't like some woman in a club, getting that perfect selfie.
Well, I have to, be careful of park rangers, and I always get some inquisitive looks whenever people catch me doing what I'm doing, and almost always they have to ask, which I mean, why would you not? Why is this guy taking pictures of whiskey on top of a mountain? And it's always fun to kind of just share what I do, and people go, "Get the fuck out!" Like, you do what? Yes, but I enjoy that aspect. It's kind of like shock value. So like, you're working right now. I'm like, yeah, this is my job. And they're like, we hate you. But most of the time, I've got a pretty good idea of what I want. So usually it's very rare that I use the initial shot. Because I got to frame it up. I want to look at it. I want to see what I can change. I want to make sure everything's lined up correctly. I want to make sure my background is in focus. But I would say most of the time I can get the picture I want within 7 to 10 photos, and that'll take me a minute to a minute and a half. So it's not a very long process for me.
So you're taking the photos yourself, or do you have somebody shooting for you?
99% of the time it's me shooting, and then if I'm in the picture, I have like a remote app on my phone, so I can click the shutter from my phone and have my camera on either like a tripod or a tree trunk or a rock or something like that. But I've worked with many really incredible photographers that have helped me and snap photos of me in action.
I've wondered how you got some of those shots where you've tossed the bottle up in the air and got the shot midair.
So there's a technique to it. I usually have my lens. It's more of a wide angle. So I'll have the camera like this. I'm holding the bottle in my hand, line it up, and then I've got it all focused in. And I'm not looking at the camera at this point. So I just have a shutter. It's a burst. So as long as I'm holding it, it's taking pictures. And then I just toss, watch it, catch, down. So there've only been 2 incidences where I didn't catch it, but both times were over snow. And I was being a little more risky and throwing it up a little higher. But I've not lost a bottle in that manner, knock on wood.
That's a good. Now, one of your more, I guess, looked at photos from a lot of the women in the group. You know where I'm going with this. The shirtless, beard flip, water spraying. Did you take that by yourself, or did you have somebody?
No. I had an idea for the shot, and I had my buddy who's a photographer. I'm like, yo, here's my vision. This is what I want to do. He's like, done, let's go. So he just went to this freezing cold lake and did that little shoot. And man, that thing just went rocketed all over the internet. It was great. Yeah. It was that one was a lot of fun to shoot. And it definitely is one of my favorite photos that anybody's ever taken of me.
How many takes did that take to get right?
That took 5.
Oh,
not too bad. I guarantee you.
5
was about the limit because it was winter time and you're in a mountain lake.
Oh no, that was like late. It was like mid-spring. It wasn't too bad.
Oh, was it? Okay.
No, I've done some that have been very cold, like up in Canada, and then a couple glacial lakes this year. Those have been those ones have been a little more interesting. And usually for those, I just have my camera or my phone set up on a tripod and shoot it in slow motion. You've seen them. They're quite excessive, but they're a lot of fun. And people, it's kind of just become like, it's either, beard flip Nate or naked Nate or whatever. I'm a wild guy. I like my brain being wild. People don't ever know what to expect from me. So I do wild shit from time to time. And some people don't like it, but most people just think it's funny and extremely entertaining.
I recall a very striking photo of you in a winter landscape, and it's you with the beard, and it's snowing, and you got snow on your face. That's a great photo, and it's a great segue into it. Do you work with your photos afterwards to do any sort of editing or touch up, or are all of these just au naturel?
No. I do some editing, but it's very minimal. I very rarely. it does, for me to edit a photo, it takes me, I mean, I'm also, now, granted, I'm used to doing it now, and I know my style, I know what I want. It only takes me, 30 seconds to a minute to edit a photo, because I try to get everything set in camera for that shot. And the only thing that I'm really doing is trying to get my vision from what I saw, what you have to do, like either adjusting the shadows or brightening it up a little bit, or saturation or the structure, just little tweaks. But I never want anyone to look at a photo and go, that's very edited. That's like one of my one thing. And I've had a few that have been more edited than I would have liked, but for the most part, no, it's very minimal. That photo in particular, the only thing I changed on that was obviously I took out all the color.
Yeah.
That was all natural too. I started off a hike in New Hampshire in the White Mountains. We started off at -15 degrees,
Ugh.
the trailhead.
Warm.
So my beard was just ice, and it was awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, in the research that we did, nothing came across as, oh my God, that's been over edited, or it was obvious that were filters. So it's done very well.
Yeah, we don't use Snapchat for Whiskey with a View.
I had a vision in my mind, and I'm just going to leave it there.
Yeah.
That's after hours.
About a year ago, you set out on this quest. What was the main objective, and what did you truly hope for as the quest was ending, or the journey's coming to an end? I mean, because you were going to do it for a year. It sounds like you may be doing it a little bit longer. So from the start of the quest to where you're at now, where do you see things going?
I have no idea. I'll be honest. All right. So, I mean, I knew this was going to be an adventure. I wanted to do something really outside the box. And pertaining to your last question about becoming a minimalist, I mean, I just realized I was surrounded by shit I didn't need, things I didn't need. I began to really just hate the kind of, like, people be like, you're 31 years old. Where's your wife? Where's your kids? Where's your home? Where's your full-time job? Where's your life insurance? Where's your health insurance? I'm like, I don't want any of that. And why should I have to conform to that to be a normal person? Because I'm not normal. So for me, my way of rebelling and expressing myself was to say, all right, I'm going to get rid of all of that. And I'm going to go be homeless for a while. And I'm going to live out of a van and just be a dirtbag for a year straight and see what that's like. And it's been.
How many times did the Saturday Night Live skit with Farley come up? I live in a van down by the river.
I'd say you're about the 321st person to say that.
Yeah, I was just curious how many times you've heard that.
I've said it myself plenty of times.
Great skit.
It's brilliant. But ironically enough, when you look at that skit, it's like the polar opposite for me. And that's what I think people thought was so funny about it. And I do see the humor in that. But for me, I mean, just selling all of my things, like I got rid of everything that I owned. I had actually my compact bar before I even bought the van, everything I owned. And I just remember going through all of my stuff, and I'm a bit of a hoarder when it comes to whiskey trinkets and things. And I gave away or sold all of my bottles, or like my whole family each got a special unopened bottle at Christmas. Like, I really downsized everything. And I can tell you, within a month of being on the road, I couldn't even tell you what I threw out. Like, it didn't matter to me. They were just things. And for me, I spend money on experiences now. I will spend money on whiskey, granted. But for the most part, I mean, my money goes into traveling and experiencing. And of course, you have to get gear. For me, I've dumped over $11,000 of repairs into this damn van over the course of the trip, not including the price of the van itself. So at the end of the day, people are like, well, are you going to save any money? I'm like, no, I started off this trip almost broken in debt, and I'm going to end it almost broken in debt. But I've had an experience that very, very few people in the world can say they've had, and have grown immensely, just because I'm by myself 99% of the time. And when you're by yourself that long, with oftentimes no cell service and just in the woods, you got to confront every demon you could ever imagine, or just, work on things that you haven't worked on before, when you're spending hours and hours just plodding through the woods. But I mean, I'm lucky enough to have had my dog Sky with me the entire time, and I couldn't have done this trip without her.
Yeah, you're
Man's best friend.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just saying man's best friend. Go ahead, Julie. I'm sorry.
No, just that your story really resonates with me, because I left New York, sold all my stuff, moved across the world with a backpack, and traveled for a year and a half, and it was amazing. And I've, like you, gotten to see and experience so many phenomenal things. And it's, yeah, that resonates. And I'm interested, do you have any specifically favorite landscapes that you really resonate with or seek out? I mean, you've been, East Coast, West Coast, Scotland, tons of other places. Is there any place that outdoors your heart is kind of home?
I mean, Scotland was definitely like, I would move there in a heartbeat if it wasn't so damn rainy. I just can't do that much rain. I got lucky when I was working over there for Glenmorangie
That's
that
why you get an umbrella.
although that is, I will let you guys know, I haven't said this really too publicly yet, but one of my upcoming trips I'm trying to do is I want to backpack to all 130 distilleries in a matter of 6 months. But I'm just going to be very, very soaking wet the entire time.
Worth it. Totally worth it. That's why they have the whiskey. So you
exactly. But that's something I'm hoping to do in the next 2 years. But for me, oh, sorry, I just totally blanked. What was the question?
Oh, what kind of landscape? Are you more into beaches, mountains, glacial lakes, just like a man?
Like I love Scotland. I was fortunate to go over to like Taiwan this past year, which was incredible. I absolutely love shooting Canada up in Banff, Banff National Park up in Alberta. Some of the most beautiful, stunning areas I've ever been. I did backpacking the Grand Canyon, which was beautiful, but I got claustrophobic within 3 days. But out west is my absolute favorite. That's where I plan on moving to in March. But like the Rocky Mountain area, I'm moving to the Potato State, so I'll be in Idaho, far away from everybody, which actually has some of the most gorgeous, stunning lakes and mountain ranges I've ever seen, and just nobody knows about them. Everyone just thinks of Idaho as desert and potatoes, but where I'm going to be moving is like there's just no one there. It's incredible. So that's my favorite spot I've ever been in the U.S. is of all places, Idaho. And I've been Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, Arizona, Utah, Oregon, Washington, all gorgeous in their own way. But for me, Idaho is the most pristine wilderness I've ever seen.
As you and I've kind of chatted back and forth over the last year or so. Jealous of your trip, obviously. I mean, who isn't? Jesus Christ. He may be jealous too. But you've been to some fantastic places. Like you said, you've gone to Scotland, which is a dream trip for so many. Idaho, the hidden secret of the U.S.
No one talk about that place. But not until I move there. After I move there, you guys are all welcome.
Go to Taiwan.
Keep it out.
A little late, Nate. We're live on WBSE.
So
everyone,
you've got to go to some really kick-ass places. I mean, iconic sceneries, deep, rich history, just so much abroad. If Nate could have his dream trip, where would it be at? What would you ideally love to go to see? Like for myself, I dream of going to New Zealand. That's you
hit it on the head, man. That's my dream spot.
Really?
I want to get, once again, wherever I am, I'll just put my life on hold. I want to move out there for a year and just work on a farm.
Well, I can give you all the good tips and tricks because that's where I moved to.
That's I literally just want to work for extraneous cash, like on a farm twice a week, and then just hike, backpack. I would leave everything. The only thing I would have would be a phone for emergencies or to keep in touch with family. Like no social media, no nothing. It would be my year to do what I need to do and grow. And this trip has definitely reinforced that and made me go, oh yeah, no, this is a great idea. I have to do this.
So is the year on the road coming to an end?
Well, it would have been a year in February, but I got stranded in Tennessee with my family when COVID hit. Yeah. It was about a month and a half where I wasn't on the road, so it's not going to quite be a full year. But my contracts are ending at the end of November and end of December, so that's going to kind of be the end. But I'll be still traveling around. I don't plan on like settling down anywhere till March. So I'll be hitting more of the southern states where I wasn't able to really have as much time in the South as I wanted to, just because when I started the trip, almost 2 months delayed, that's when the heat wave struck, and that van is not suited for hot weather. Let me put it that way.
So that sort of segues into our next question about your experience with the pandemic. Must have been different because you spent most of the time camping and on the road. What have you learned from the pandemic and has and its impact on society, if I can get the words out?
Well, for me, I was really hoping that it would kind of bring people together and kind of work as a team, and it seemed to have done the polar opposite. Um, and that would more refer to like the cities, but a lot of the places I've been have been a lot more rural, a lot more small towns, and it's communities of people that are in those areas. It's been really, really interesting to see how people bond and work with each other and make sure everyone's okay. At the same time, I've seen everything from how destroyed, LA and San Francisco are, to being up in the middle of nowhere in Idaho or Wyoming or Montana, where it's just like life is normal. Like they don't even abide some of the towns by state laws because there's absolutely no reason. No one's going to enforce it. But I mean, I have had the unique opportunity to see how over 30 different states have dealt with the pandemic in different ways. And it's just one of those things where there is really no blanket way of dealing with it. It's so different in so many different areas. And I mean, it's something where you could almost go town by town with different orders and closures and whatnot. And I can't believe how messed up everything was. But again, this was something that, it was not something that we've really experienced for something that's so catching. So I personally wasn't afraid for myself on the trip. I eat healthy, make sure my nutrition is good, all my vitamins, minerals. Obviously, I'm extremely active. But I've also made sure that, I'm checked, and my biggest fear would be to give it to someone that isn't, well, or, at risk.
Right.
But thankfully, there's not been a single issue with that. But again, I really was not ever in large crowds. I was very rarely indoors. If I was getting food, which was rare, I would usually just cook all my own food. But if I was getting food, it would be takeout. I think I was in a restaurant maybe 5 times the entire trip. So from that case, I didn't really experience it the way that people in the suburbs and cities did. But in the countryside, I mean, I saw a lot of unnecessary closures, a lot of small towns suffering because they're, touristy. But then you got the question, well, those tourists could come from the big cities and then bring it in there. So what do you do? I mean, it's been sad to see, but I've also seen a lot of, like I said before, a lot of these smaller communities coming together and bonding and making sure that everybody's okay, which is really beautiful to see. I just wish everyone could be that way instead of just bickering and fighting, because at the end we all want to be alive and we don't want anybody else to die because of us. And I think that that's just been completely lost in translation and been politicized. And
I like the John Lennon song Imagine.
Yeah. And so I hope it's a lesson that can be learned and that we don't continue down this road, because I've seen both sides and it's scary. Not so much the virus to me, but just the way people react to it is terrifying to me.
So following up on something you said earlier and talking about being on the road and you're 99% by yourself, or you have Sky, how did you work with combating the loneliness of the road? I mean, traveling by yourself, had to be daunting. You seem fairly well equipped with it, but I'm just kind of curious, especially in light of the pandemic with things being shut down. How did you cope with that?
Well, I seem very extroverted, but I'm very much an introvert. I like being alone. I don't do well with crowds of people. I don't do well in relationships with women because I'm just too distant and I like to be alone a lot. So for me, it really, there were times where it was a struggle. I did have a couple, slight mental and emotional breakdowns. And of course I missed my friends and my family. My brother joined me for 3 weeks on the trip, which was awesome. But for the most part, I've got my dog and she's basically a furry little demon creature. So I yell at her and talk to her all the time. Yeah, she's fantastic. But she was definitely my companion and my therapy dog in a sense, because if I did not have her with me, I think I could have done this trip stubbornly, because I am very stubborn, but I would have been miserable. So I would say a huge reason that I was able to do it was because I had her with me. But at the same time, no, there were some days where It was rough. I remember pulling into a campsite and just bursting into tears because I had no cell service. I had no one to talk to, and it just hit me that day. Like I was really, really lonely. And there were a couple times like that, like just where it randomly happened, but most of the time it wasn't an issue. But I definitely have learned I am more of a social creature than I thought I was. I thought I was going to be able to not care about humans and I'd be fine. And then some guy at a gas station would strike up a conversation with me. And it's the first time I had a conversation with a human in a week. And I'd talk his ear off for a half hour. I'm like, oh no, I'm that person. I've become that person that I can't stand. Just you corner him and you don't shut up. Yeah, then I realized, okay, I need to start interacting more. So I'd, call friends or FaceTime them. And I've got a very, very strong support system of friends and family. But so at the end of the day, the amount of loneliness compared to the amount of joy I've gotten out of this is astronomical.
And that's really fantastic to see. And yeah, also the realization that animals are such phenomenal companions and they serve us so well through life. Thank you so much for sharing all of that slightly heavy stuff, but it's really great to get, your perspective on all the crazy that's been happening. But for something a little bit lighter, let's get back to whiskey.
Yeah, I'm on empty, so I gotta
Oh yeah, pour that. So we know your
By all
favorite
means.
wild turkey, but besides
I just poured the toasted barrel finish on Elijah Craig.
Oh, how is that? I haven't tried it yet.
Very good. I have it in my glass.
I'm trying to, first I tried it in a Glencairn. Now I'm switching over to a rocks glass. I like to try different glassware with a new whiskey. Fantastic. The Glen. I'm hoping this kind of opens it up a little bit more and brings out those toasted notes. So I'll let you know, but I'm digging it. Sorry, Julia.
No worries. Is there any particular flavor profile you really like or look for in a whiskey? Something that you just gravitate towards naturally?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, after years of reviewing thousands of whiskeys and obviously tasting them for work and doing, judging whiskey competitions, like I kind of nowadays gravitate to very different experimental whiskeys just because I've had so much. Like if a company reached out to me and they're like, oh, we have a whiskey we want you to try. We source it from MGP. I'm like, all right, I'm good. Like, I don't need it. I'm sorry. Like I've had it, I've sold it. Like I was selling barrels of 13-year cast strength MGP rye. Like I know the taste profile. I know what it is. And even if you finished up, probably had that too. So I'm okay. But at the end of the day, I mean, I've had some really interesting whiskeys that are like, distilled from anything from, stouts and pilsners, and they're funky and they're not something that, I'd want to put down every day, but I enjoy tasting something different, a little risky and outside the box. And now I'm really excited to start seeing the American single malt category come into play now that there's finally aged product coming out, and I've gotten to taste a lot of it. And there's some really phenomenal stuff that people are going to be seeing on the shelves, even starting now and especially in the next year. That for me is a category I'm personally most interested in, because even though I am a diehard bourbon and rye fan, it kind of gets to be pretty much around the same, not necessarily in quality, but taste profile wise and stuff. You get burned out really quick. Where with me, single malts, I think you have a lot more room for creativity, flavor profile. So that's the category that I'm personally focusing on and very, very interested in watching closely.
All right.
I'll drink to that. Cheers.
I'll definitely drink to that.
I can tell by your background that you would agree with that.
Yeah.
There's a really great place in Baltimore called Old Line Distillery. Has a fantastic single malt. We'll talk once we're done here. Hang out for a few minutes. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But so there's an old adage, and it's something that's near and dear to my heart, and I know it's near and dear to Bill's. Whiskey's meant to be shared. My God, that's if there's one thing on WBSE that we push is, share a bottle, share a moment, share experience, share a laugh, share a tear, whatever. Just share the damn bottle. If you're going to flip it up with a buddy.
Yep.
That's what we always say. Over the last year on the road, Jesus, it's been great following. And I've seen that you were able to stop by some of friend's house, but at the campgrounds or the travel plazas or wherever, uh, were you able to share?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even especially like in my old days of reviewing whiskey and working with it, I would not be alive right now if I didn't share. Um, but no, on this trip, my sponsors for the trip would always be kind enough to send, you know, uh, 2 bottles instead of one to shoot, one to share is my kind of motto. And then, I had some personal bottles, but oh man, any campsite I was at, anyone I was hanging out with, I would almost be pushy about it. I'd be like, here, try this, try this, try this. And it's something that I've always loved doing, and especially as someone who was a brand ambassador where it was my job to share whiskey with people. It's second nature to me. Like anything that I have that's open that I'm drinking, anyone that's around me, unless I really don't like you, that they can have it too. And that's something that you and I wholeheartedly agree on.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's next on the journey, bud?
Well, I mean, this trip, I'm going to be working my way. After the van's done, I'm going to hike up in the mountains a little bit and work my way down south. I can probably actually pop by you, but I will
My house
be.
is always open.
Oh yeah,
Barbecue's ready
but
to
I'll be visiting and hiking in West Virginia, North Carolina. Working my way over to my family's house outside of Nashville for Christmas, and then before that, I'll end up going to more of the southern states, and after that, go down to Florida, which I wasn't even able to hit on this trip, and then across the southern United States to spend more time in Texas and New Mexico, which I really
Uh-huh.
really enjoyed, and Arizona. So I've still got some more places to go and
Right
to
on.
hit, and then eventually I'm hoping around March or so to settle down up north.
So if people want to follow you on your journey, where would they go?
My recommendation would be on
No, no, no,
my
no, no. Where would they go to follow you?
to follow me. Good luck.
Yeah.
I don't even plan. I'm
And
one of those people where people go, where are you going to be on this day? I'm like, I have no idea. I've
about online, Instagram.
Instagram, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
if they want to follow the journey, the Whiskey with a View Instagram is
right.
is definitely the spot. My personal page, Whiskey Nate, which is more, me and Sky and more of like a personal thing. That's good to follow too. But I try to make the content different. And then I mean, I think I'm almost loaded up with friends on Facebook. You can follow me on Facebook, but that's basically the same thing as Instagram.
Right.
So that would be my recommendation to check that out, and you'll just see lots of pictures of whiskey, my dog, and my van underneath the Milky Way galaxy.
That's a beautiful sight, man. Hey,
Nothing
Nate,
wrong with that.
on behalf of WBSE and the Whiskey Network, I'd like to raise my glass to you, my friend, and good luck on your journeys, and cheers to you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Absolute
Cheers,
pleasure
Whiskey
hanging out
Network.
with you guys. We were overdue, so I'm super, super happy that we got to finally sit down and do this.
Stop by Hanover, PA. Let's have a barbecue.
Absolutely. I'm sleeping on your couch, maybe your lawn. We'll see.
Hey, it doesn't matter. We'll get drunk. Let's open some old shit and just
It'll
have
be
a great
long.
fucking time. Let's just chug whiskey and have fun.
You're not going to get any arguments from me.
Or me. All right, so we're off of Facebook.
Hi guys, I'm so sorry about that. Yeah, you're good. You're off of Facebook. We're still recording unless you want me to stop it.
You could stop now.
Okay.
Hey, Nate, great job. Thank you very much, man. We